All right, today we are going to learn about how to do the angle sum in regular polygons. So first we need to know, well, what is a regular polygon? Well, regular polygons are polygons whose side lengths are equal and interior angle measures are equal. So basically we're saying all the sides in the shape are the same, all the angles within the shape are the same, okay? Versus an irregular polygon would be a polygon with either two sides with different lengths or two angles with different measures. So bottom line, irregular, they're not all the same. So you might be thinking irregular would be something like a square, where all the sides are the same and all the angles are the same. The angles would all be 90. Versus irregular could be something like a rectangle, where a rectangle does have all 90-degree angles, but only the sides across from each other are the same. So those are some examples for you. All right, so we're going to talk about how to find how many degrees are in each shape. So first, let's talk about number of sides. We know a triangle has 3 sides to it. Okay, square has 4 sides. Pentagon is 5. Hexagon's 6. Heptagon's 7. And octagon is 8. Okay, now we want to talk about the measure of a angle within this shape. Okay, well, if a triangle, if it's regular, all 3 angles are going to be 60 degrees. Okay, and then when you add those angles up, they would be 60 plus 60 plus 60. There would be 3 of them. Triangles always total up to make 180 degrees. All right, now a square. Square, we know they have the 4 sides. All 4 angles in a square are 90 degrees. Okay, when you have 90 degrees on 4 angles, when you do 90 times 4, or if you add 90 4 times, you're going to get 360 degrees for your angle sum. Okay, now with a pentagon, well, a pentagon you're probably not very familiar with, but pentagon, if all 5 sides are the same, if we were to measure each angle, they would actually be 108 degrees. And the angle sum, if I have 5 of those and I add them up, is going to be 540 degrees. Okay, so that could be 108 times 5, or 108 5 times would make that answer. Okay, now without measuring and knowing these answers to the rest of these, I want to show you a pattern of what's happening. If you look at the angle sums, I want you to notice that each time I add a new side to my shape, it goes up 180 degrees. So that's up 180, that's up 180. Okay, and that's going to happen each time. So I can keep following that pattern to figure out what the sum of all my angles are going to be in any of these shapes. So if I add 180 to 540, I'm going to get 720 degrees. Then if I add 180 to that, I'm going to get 900 degrees. And if I add 180 to that and keep going with this pattern, I'm going to get 1080 degrees. Okay, so that's the sum again of all the angles in the shape. So all 8 angles in the shape total 1080 degrees. So now thinking backwards, if you look at these, there's not quite the same pattern where it adds the same each time. But we know that if this is the sum, all the angles are going to be the same. So I could take 180 divided by 3 would give me 60. 360 divided by 4 angles would give me 90. 540 divided by 5 would give me 108. So I could kind of follow that pattern to figure out the measure of each angle. So I could take 720 and I could divide it by 6. And when I divide 720 by 6, I get 120 degrees is how big one of those angles is. Okay. Now, I can take 900 and divide by 7, and actually it's not going to divide evenly. So we would round it. If we divide it, it makes about, it's a symbol for about 128.6 degrees. Okay, and then if I take 1080 and I divide it by the 8 angles, they would each be 135 degrees. Again, the reason I'm able to divide these evenly is because this is for specifically regular polygons. So I know all of the angles are going to be the same. So I can split this by that number, and that's exactly how big they would each be. Okay. Now I knew these patterns, I knew how this worked, but this all kind of follows along with formulas that help you that help you understand this. So for a regular polygon, if I want to find the angle sum, again, remember angle sum means the sum of all the angles. Notice it says for n sides, so n represents the number of sides. So S represents my sum. It says the sum is equal to 180, and then in parentheses it says n minus 2. Remember when you have something in parentheses, something next to parentheses, that means multiply. So it's 180 times the number of sides minus 2. So for example, if I look back at my triangle was 3 sides. So if I put 3 in there, 3 minus 2 would be 1, times 180 would be 180 degrees. And if I put 4 sides in there, 4 minus 2 is 2. Take that times 180, that gives me 360. So this formula helps me figure out for any number of sides, what's the sum of all the angles going to be. So I could jump right to the octagon and put an 8 in there. 8 minus 2 is 6. Times 180 would make 1,080. So I can always use this to find the angle sum of any regular polygon without having to sit there and keep adding 180 each time to my pattern. Okay, it allows me, I could then jump to a much larger shape and use that. All right, then if I want to find the measure of each angle, so each and every angle, notice this formula, it still has n for the number of sides. It looks very similar to this. So A is for the angle. Notice the top part of this fraction here is the same as this. So it wants you to first figure out the sum of all the angles, which is what we did up here, and then divide it by n, which n is your number of sides. So if I think back to doing this one where I put the 8 in there, 8 minus 2 was 6 times 180 gave me 1,080, and then if I divide that by 8, that's going to give me my individual angle right there. All right, so let's use some practice of this for finding some angles. So it says to find the sum of the interior angles of a regular 26gon. Whew, that's a really big shape. So we don't want to sit here and follow this pattern 26 times till I get there. I want to use my formula. So it's the sum. So we're using this formula. So to find the sum, I'm doing 180 times, and then in parentheses it's 26 sides minus 2. So I plug the 26 in where the n was. And then I just go ahead and solve that. So 26 minus 2 would be 24. Okay, times 180, because remember we do our parentheses first. And then 180 times 24, well, I got to grab my calculator for that. It would have been 4,320 degrees. Woo, that's a lot of degrees, but that's because there's so many sides. That's how many degrees all those angles add up to make around that 26gon. Okay, so that's the sum of the angles. Now the next one says find the measure of one angle in this 26gon. So we know the sum of all of them. So all I have to do to find each angle is to take that answer, my sum, which remember those match up, divide that by the number of angles. So I'm going to divide that by the 26 angles. Okay, and that's going to give me 166.2 degrees. All right, so these two formulas right here are what we can use when we have a regular polygon if we want to find the sum of all the angles and if we want to find each angle. Okay, so just the number of sides minus 2 times 180, and then split that by how many sides to find each of them. Put a box around that answer.